Welcome to Foundry Talks, where we rethink what travel and hospitality marketing can be. In this episode, myself, Derek Hales, and Trey Evans, the co-founders of the Travel Foundry, dive into the evolving world of hospitality marketing, sharing why agility, authenticity, and a deep guest understanding are the new non-negotiables. We explore how breaking old models, fostering team alignment, and balancing technology with human touch aren't just trends, but the future. From personalizing guest experiences to building loyalty through local connections, and from creative brand storytelling to smarter influencer strategies, this conversation is a blueprint for brands ready to think bigger and lead with heart. I'm Rachel Stoyanovsky, and today I'm joined by my co-founders at the Travel Foundry, Derek Hales and Trey Evans. Let's start by getting personal. What really brought us together to start this agency? So Derek, Trey, we all come from different backgrounds in marketing, but let's start with this. What really drew us to focusing on travel and hospitality marketing out of all the different industries that we've all worked in?
It's a really good one. I'll take that one first. So quick story, back in 2021, my wife and I took a road trip around Colorado. We lived just outside of Denver and it was COVID era. So we had actually originally planned a trip to Spain and Italy, but obviously that got canceled. So we did a last minute just road trip around Southwest Colorado, and we stumbled upon these incredible locations that were just completely beautiful. We went through a place called Paonia. We went down by the sand dunes outside of Telluride and Ouray. And we found all of these places that were beautiful once we got there. But to be honest with you, when we were booking with it, we were concerned if they were even like legitimate places. Like their digital footprint just did not match their physical property at all. And so it was around that same time that I started working with a lodge out in Utah, our friends at Daniel Summit, and loved working with them, just fell in love with the industry of travel and hospitality. And I've been in the agency side for about a decade now. So I worked in e-commerce, SaaS, tons of different industries, nonprofit, but just completely fell in love with travel and hospitality. I think travel is one of those things that's just good for your soul, and it's just a good thing and people need more of it. Yeah. So super excited to really get to focus on, an industry that I think is just really meaningful.
Yeah.
I think
Derek, what about you?
I think Trey kind of said it, is there anything more exciting than travel and hospitality? I mean, it's literally what everyone wants to save their PTO for. It's like what you look forward to most, I think, throughout the year. And like Trey, I've worked in a ton of different industries, automotive, to food and beverage, to pharmaceuticals. And this is by far the one that's just most interesting to me. Understanding that kind of guest mindset and what's causing them to go on a vacation. What are their expectations? That stuff just, you ask those same kind of questions in different industries, but this one in particular, just it's interesting. You really kind of understand people's deepest desires and kind of what they're hoping to do. And it's just, I don't know, something I love traveling too. It's something we look forward to every year, and working in this industry just seemed to make sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think for me, starting working in-house on the other side of, not in an agency, but in-house with a luxury hospitality brand from a really young age, I just fell in love with that field, and obviously traveling, but really the people that I worked alongside that shape that guest journey and that guest experience, and creating those special moments for a guest, whether that was telling the story of our team or our amazing chefs or the local destination, and just really being a storyteller for that space was something that I just loved. So getting to do this for a larger group of clients has just been such a great experience so far.
That's something that's been so interesting to me working with you, Rachel. Obviously, Derek and I come from a similar background. We've been on the agency side. We've worked together in the past. And so I think for us, we've always been a little bit curious, like what's it like on the other side, on the in-house side. And so it's been really interesting having your perspective being in the opposite, like always being on the in-house side, but you've worked with agencies. So it's awesome to get your perspective there on how things are different.
It's definitely made the deep dive into understanding and educating yourself so much easier, having someone who's been there for over 10 years just tell us a little lingo and the details that make it what it is. I mean, that's a learning curve of itself, but to have someone on our team that does that has been awesome.
Yeah, well, and on that same token, I think, one thing we all really wanted to do is how can we shake up this traditional agency model that maybe feels a little antiquated or doesn't really work well. And so being able to share some of those firsthand frustrations that we have, and then get both of your expertise on, okay, now how do we shift that to make this actually really something that's more powerful and works well for multiple clients. So I think that kind of plays into something I wanted to talk about next, but I think we all had this common goal, right? We want to do something that's different and that's actually going to make an impact and remove some of those frustrations that traditional agencies can bring. So, what do you think one thing that we do or one thing that we believe about travel marketing would probably get us kicked out of a traditional agency?
I can kick us off. I know from firsthand. I mean, I worked at a smaller agency and I worked at a huge one too. And there seems to be kind of a rigid process that a lot of agencies work with, right? They want you to go through door 1 to get to door 6. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense for brands. And I think that's something that was unique right away for us when we were talking about what's going to make this special, what's going to make this different from other agencies. It's just being agile and adaptive and being flexible with clients and saying, hey, you might not need this huge creative overhaul. You may not want your logo redone like so many agencies kind of jump at. And we just decided to be a little more thoughtful and really human focused on it. I think that was huge for us too, is just diving deep in understanding kind of the nuances about the industry and being really, really people first. And I don't think all agencies necessarily are always people first, but I think that rigid process is definitely, it's disruptive in some ways, right? A lot of agencies have this kind of this way of doing things, and we didn't want to have anything to do with that. There's certainly a process that works and that we adhere to, but it's adaptive, it's agile, it's kind of evolving, and it's based on what our clients need, right?
Yeah. No, and I love that because we would get that sometimes. And even when we look at brands and clients, they've put a lot of hard work into building what they have. So to just come in and want to overhaul everything, I love that we still try to play an importance on what they've done so far and honoring their heritage and their story and how they've gotten started and just making small tweaks, adding some strategy, adding some technical fixes that can really help them, but without just scrapping everything they worked so hard to do. What about you, Trey?
Yeah, for me, I would say, and I'm guilty of this too in the past, and when I was younger in my career, is over recommending things. So it can be really tempting of just all the things that you can do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it. So understanding how to prioritize those things. So a younger version of me would get really excited and say we can do Instagram and SEO and paid search and influencers and PR and email, and let's look at the website and how are we optimizing that. And so not that any of those things are bad, but it's more of how can we focus on less things and do them better? And I think more often than not, that's really a better recipe for success in marketing and probably in life too, but I'm not the one to take advantage there. But really, if you boiled it down, you need a way to get in front of new people. So you need awareness channels. So maybe that's Instagram. And then you need an intent channel. So when people are searching for you, they can find you. So maybe that's paid search and SEO. So at its most bare bones, that's a good example that I like to start with is, do we have something that we can effectively get in front of people that don't know about us? And can we effectively get in front of people as they're searching for someone like us? And really just maxing that out before we start expanding into different channels.
Yeah, I love that. I think something I like that we all, agree on too, is that there isn't really a one size fits all approach. So while some of the avenues, Instagram, paid search, that's the same, the actual process of what we do for each client is so different. And I would feel like that sometimes an agency would come in and they'd have this formula that was working and that they would try to mold us into, but every property is so different. There's so many unique things. So taking the time to really understand their specific pain points and their team, because the people behind it really are having a big impact too. So who are the key players? Let's get to know them. How can we all work together? And just really understanding that it is not a one size fits all approach, and to be really tailored and customized to each person. I think that's, always important.
Rach, that reminds me of when we first started this, we did do like a brand strategy. We kind of aligned on like, what does our vision for this look like? I think a big part of frustration was just talking about pain points. There's pain points working with agencies. There's pain points, there's the client agency pain point system, right? And sometimes agencies are working years on an account where the client is like a quote unquote pain in the ass, right? And they want the boss so badly to just cut ties. But I think for us, it's making sure that we're aligned with the people we work with, right? That we share those values and that passion. Because I think at the end of the day, we want to make their job easier, give them back more time, be able to be a long-term growth partner for them, not just someone who's going to just do a quick campaign that just maybe moves the needle a little bit. I mean, just being there long-term, but possibly dropping a client if they're not a good fit, right? Or not taking on an account just because they've got a big budget. I think that was huge for us when we decided to set out and do this, is that let's be really selective and let's partner with brands that share our values and that we can actually make a difference and we can get along with. Because a lot of agencies have toxic relationships with their clients, and that's something that we just didn't want to do. We didn't want our team to interact that way. And we wanted to make sure that it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that it can get so easy just to want to take on every project, but really being more selective, that's just going to produce better work in the long run. So totally. I love that. That's something we were also aligned on.
It comes down to like the diagnostics of, can we really help someone? And it kind of goes into like the tailored recommendation as well, where if you go to a doctor, like they're going to diagnose you, hopefully, right? Like they're not just going to give you a recommendation before asking you a bunch of questions. And so that's kind of how I like to think about what we do as well, is really coming up with like a diagnostics of, let's look at the business together. Let's figure out where are the bottlenecks, where can we get better, whether it's from a brand perspective or even with your background, like a service perspective, the guest experience from the digital side, and coming up with something really tailored and not just, again, we're going to do social media and SEO and website and all of that stuff just because we can.
Right. Yeah. Does it actually warrant it? Do you actually need that? Is that what's going to fit for you? So on that same note of talking about pain points, I think that we could all agree, as we've, dived in deeper to this industry, that there are some common pain points across the board. So I'd love to just chat through some of those and get your guys' opinion. I think there's probably, the pain points will be different for where you are, but I think generally seasonality and slow seasons, that's going to be a pain point really across the board. So how can, what are some strategies? How can hospitality industries and hotels and resorts kind of combat that and do something to not have it be just such a flop in the year, but actually create some type of value?
Yeah, seasonality is always a big one. And I'm in Colorado, I'm up in the mountains. Rachel, you're by the beach, so we have a little bit opposite, but it's still seasonality at the end of the day. So a good example that I really like is we were in Lake Tahoe in September, and there they call September, it's like local summer, because most of the tourism is dying down. Kids are back in school, but it's still pretty warm there. The water is super cold by September, but it's still doable. But there's a lot of specials for locals to come and enjoy some of the amenities at hotels and at spas and happy hours and that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lesson to be taken there, which is during your slow seasons, how can you show appreciation for locals, whether that's in your immediate area or, like for me, if you're up in the mountains outside of Denver, how can you get local traffic that's 30, 40 miles away in the city for kind of the staycation? So I think that's a big one. I also admired our friends at Daniel Summit out in Utah. They're obviously making a lot of their revenue in the wintertime, but over the summer they have ancillary activities. So they've got horseback riding. They have other events, ATVs that you can do. So other ways to kind of cross-sell and drive revenue during those slow seasons. So those are kind of the things that come to mind to me, but I'm sure there's a ton, even from just like, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Rachel, like using that time as an opportunity to start planning for the next year, because you finally survived the busy seasons. Like what comes? Take a breath.
100%. It's like when you're in those peak seasons, you're just running to put out one fire to the next, and you're just, trying to keep things afloat. But when you get to kind of those slower seasons, really taking advantage of, okay, what work can we do now to really set us up for the next uphill that we're coming to. So I love that, though, tapping into locals. And our restaurants where I, worked for so long really depended on the local guest. And so taking that time to do initiatives that show appreciation for them, I'm sure would be awesome, especially in areas where it's a little bit of a further drive for them to get to, but making it worth their while And then you're just creating that strong base for your different outlets throughout the year because you're building those relationships with them and making them feel like they're welcome. So I think that's huge. I think another thing that's great during that time is to really welcome media and influencers because you're not so busy. So you can afford the space and the time to dedicate to, maybe host them for a stay. Maybe you're doing special experiences that you have a little bit more bandwidth to set up for them to showcase something that you're trying to promote. So that's always a great thing, I think, to do in the slower seasons. And that can really help build your content and messaging as you go into that next peak season where you're going to need it. So you'll just be that much more ahead.
And Rachel, I would think those slower seasons, it's probably easier to get by off to have an influencer or someone stay during that time anyways, right? So you're going to make the influencer happy being there, not in a necessarily busy time, but you're also going to make the key decision maker happy too. Hey, this is totally a good time to have someone come in and shoot content, where we're not having guests everywhere. It seems like a good time to do that.
Yeah, a lot easier to get approval on a slow season stay versus, Christmas Eve.
Right. Sure. Yeah, you've got vacancy anyways. Like it's
makes sense.
Yeah. And influencers aside, even if you're just doing a brand shoot for your own content, photography, videography, doing those kinds of things, brand workshops, trainings, all of that, I think, really take advantage of that time when it's not so crazy.
I think that's a great point, Rachel. I think so many times hotels will feel like, oh my gosh, this is the off season. Like, this is so scary. We're not seeing guests come through the door, but it really can be an opportunity to invest in yourself. Like you said, do some of these brand initiatives. Maybe let's look through some of these reviews and kind of pull out what are we doing wrong? How can we make this experience better for the upcoming season, and investing kind of in some of that brand strategy. Maybe we need to reposition ourselves in the market. Maybe guests can't differentiate us from another competing hotel. And it's really a good time for brands to slow down and kind of analyze where they've been, what's working, what's not, how can we prioritize things and kind of invest in ourselves to some degree to make the future better for our guests.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's always something that is so crucial and so important, but tends to always get pushed to the back burner. So actually finding time to make it a priority is huge.
Yeah. That time to think, like you said, it's always on to the next one, but it's when you can invest in yourself. I mean, I think most people would agree you immediately can see the results when you just take some time to step back and kind of get yourself out of the busy environment that we all live in and just kind of look at your brand. And I think almost always you'll identify things we can do better, things we can change, and we, make things better moving forward.
Yeah, totally agree. I think another, kind of industry-wide pain point is that obviously year over year, we want to be increasing revenues. So increasing room rates, increasing the costs of things, but maybe you don't do anything to justify that cost. So you have this higher rate. So the guest expectation is just that much higher, and higher. So what can hotels do to offset those feelings? I know some of our clients have had some recent reviews like, oh, it's like triple is maybe exaggerating, double what it was last year, and nothing's changed. I had the exact same stay, but there's a little bit more of a sting if you're the guest and you've paid double and nothing has changed. So I think there's ways that hotels can add added value. I know personally, some things that guests would always get kind of excited about were pretty low lift items, low cost things, but would really create more of a personal and impactful moment. Something as small as getting a branded cable cord holder, and housekeeping would go through it. If they saw any phone chargers or cables, they would tidy them up and put that around it. And it was just this little wow, personalized moment. Like, oh, that's cool. And now I take this with me and I see that everywhere. I'm constantly reminded, but a really low cost way to do that. So I'd just love to get your thoughts on, have you had any experiences or we've talked in detail about this for some of our clients, but even from a digital component, things we can do to increase the value of a guest stay that's low lift and low cost.
Yeah, I think the keyword there that you used is value. So there's obviously a difference between price and value. And so when you're looking at perceived value, even things that are happening before the guest experience. So even the website,
Yeah.
how does that look, and how are we marketing ourselves, and even highlighting things that maybe we take for granted but the guest doesn't, so making sure we're communicating all of our amenities, things like that, and even things in the area, more of destination marketing. So are we making sure that they're aware of the great restaurants in the areas, or the hikes, or whatever those things are, where it's even it's no lift on our side from an operational perspective, but it's adding value in the guest's mind to their overall experience.
And Trey,
Yeah.
I've got a stat to back that up. It's like, it's almost 90, it's like 85% of guests want to engage with the local community. I mean, it's huge. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge game changer for them to have. To your point, Rachel, maybe even it's a small little lift, like, hey, this is a locally sourced chocolate, or this is a local lavender spray we're spraying on your pillow. Those
Yeah.
little details, make a huge difference to guests, and, tapping into the culture makes that experience just so much more memorable.
No, totally. I shared this with you both, but we had just a bowl of locally sourced fruit, and it would rotate. Most of the time it was apples or oranges, and we would have it at the front desk, and when you came to check in, guests would always take that, and they were just kind of in awe, like, oh, I can just take this, something as simple as just a piece of fruit or a chilled water bottle, or something that just is such a low cost, but just adds so much value. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So, and I know you talked a little bit about this, Rachel, but just really leveling up on the service side, like that resonates with me, where it's, focus on the things that you can control. Like that's something that's definitely inside of your control. So much of the price increase is coming from inflation, right? So like that's a little bit out of your control. Like we all have margins that we have to hit. So some of those price increases have to happen. And so where else can you get creative? And it comes down to like the guest experience and the service. Before the agency space, I've never even really shared this with you guys, but real back in the day, I went through, I worked in enterprise rental cars. I went through their management program, and they have world-class customer service where like no customers should open the door on their own. Like you're opening the door for them. If you see them walking in from the parking lot, little things like that, it's just always stuck with me, is you just make such an impression with the guest and the customer. If you can just do the extra 10%, it really doesn't even take a lot. It's opening the door for them. It's, they need to extra minute while they're checking in. They forgot their reservation number, like get them a coffee, like so many little things like that just to elevate the experience.
Yeah, I think that's what makes a good hotel or a good brand experience from a great one, right? Are those little details that maybe some people think like we can just overlook those, it's not going to make that much of a difference. They actually do make a huge lift, and you can almost pinpoint the better brands are the ones who are adopting those smaller things that some people overlook.
Yeah. No, and I think that that goes back into just cross-department training and just making sure that the whole team is aligned on the same strategy. So that's something else I think that is a really prevalent pain point. I would say sometimes the biggest pain point is that a lot of times these hotels have all of these different departments. You have the restaurant, you have spa, you have rooms, you have housekeeping, and a lot of times everyone can be kind of siloed in their own department because you're just so focused on meeting your department goals and keeping things running smoothly. But there's not, I think oftentimes strategy is missed across the board as a whole, the whole team. So, hey, let's all get on the same page with what we're doing so that if your golf understands what's happening in the restaurants, and if they're connecting with a guest, they can share what's happening, and every guest interaction is going to feel similar and elevated, and like everyone is on the same team. Derek, I know we talk a lot about strategy, but how I think sometimes people don't really understand the value that strategy can have. And I think this is a perfect example.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's crazy to me seeing hotels and brands who are so large who don't see that value or don't see that disconnect, right? To your point, you could have someone working at the golf course, and then 100 yards away there's a restaurant. They have no idea what the other one's doing, what the goals are, right? But I think that's where we're different, is we kind of hyper focus on that customer journey and understand that, hey, these, the different touch points that customers have are really important. We all need to understand this complete ecosystem together. And we do need to have an understanding of how our brand, manifests itself in these different touch points. It's crazy to me how many brands just don't don't have that and don't invest the time in there. But we were talking about those little details that
Yeah.
make that guest experience good. I mean, ideally, if I'm playing golf and then I'm gonna go get a massage, I want to have a consistent experience with the people running the hotel, right? Like, to me, it's no different. If I had a bad experience at the golf course or a bad massage, I'm going to be kind of upset with the hotel in general, right? So it's important that that strategy is consistent, that we're delivering a consistent, message and a consistent experience across all different teams, right? It's just really important that there's team alignment too. A lot of, to your point, Rachel, there's different departments, but knowing what each other's challenges are can almost work in our favor. Hey, well, we can do this to kind of offset that. We can carry some of that weight by doing this. There's a lot of benefit to working together and breaking down those silos, but it's hard for brands to understand how to do that, right? Because it doesn't, sometimes you can't see that immediate return on investing those dollars, but it certainly has a long-term effect for the better.
Well, and there's just so much opportunity. I think there's the departments, they work so hard to, and especially the guest facing departments. So spa, golf, restaurants, F&B, they spend so much time coming up with these great campaigns and initiatives that they're trying to do to increase sales or increase revenue, but it can often feel so disjointed from what's happening, right on the other side of the building. So keeping those channels of communication open, and let's create something that's a little bit more integrated. Let's focus on an integrated campaign. So what we're doing and the experience we're offering, some of those special events or special offers are aligned even on the website. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we would run this campaign or run some special and then we wouldn't even put it up on the website. And I was like, well, how if they don't even know, how is our team going to know? And and being able to offer that personalized service from the team too. So if someone's golfing and they say like, oh yeah, I kind of like tweaked my back, I was out doing this thing yesterday and great. Oh, well, did you know that we have this like amazing treatment over at the spa? It does X, Y, and Z. It actually just won this award. Like, how cool for, the golf department to be able to speak to something amazing happening at the hotel. It's just such a great opportunity to upsell and really shine a light on, the team as a whole. Yeah.
So how do you break down those silos? Like, that's something that from other industries that happens everywhere. Like in the software sales, that's infamous, is like silos. Marketing is doing one thing, sales is doing another thing, product is doing another thing. Like that would happen all the time in the software world.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on how to break those silos down and how to tackle that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to create that overarching strategy and have marketing really own that. So working with the key stakeholders of the team, like, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? What is one newsworthy? What's going to tell our story? How are we going to get like a consistent messaging across? And then you just have to drill it into the team. So what really worked for us was having, we used to just have marketing meetings with our immediate team. Maybe it was the GM, maybe it was the resort manager as well. But we started incorporating a marketing meeting twice a month that included every single department head. And that way we all were in the same room or on the same Zoom going over, okay, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. And here's the overarching plan. This is our strategy. And then let's look at it as a column. So here's the strategy. What is everyone doing this month? What is everyone doing in the next 3 months? Does that all align? And it was great because you would start to see like spa would connect with what was happening in the, in the restaurant. Oh, we have this really cool treatment that utilizes grape seeds. Maybe we could tie it into some type of wine promotion, or, we're coming up on spring break. So let's make sure that what everyone is doing is focused on this next 2-week, 3-week period. We're going to have this big influx in guests. Let's make sure we're all prepared. Let's make sure that we have, the specials that we're running. Everyone's aware of what's going on so we can all speak to them. So I think it sounds so cliche, but it really comes down to communication and having a clear strategy for the year. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels and you're constantly trying to play catch up. But if you can look and say like, okay, here's the next 3 months at a minimum. I mean, ideally, we'd like to be like 6 months to a year, but in the hotel world, sometimes you're just living for the day to day. So, okay, here's the next 3 months. This is what we have coming on. Everyone, let's get moving. Here are your deadlines. And then it's just easier to keep that on track. But yeah, I think it is a problem almost everywhere to just get so focused on your own goals and your own metrics. So
It's totally a problem everywhere. And I want to share kind of an out of category example. So I worked once, I think Trey, you worked on it too. I worked for a cardiologist. They were doing this new type of therapy. I remember there was a lot of like animosity between like the cardiologist and the nurse practitioner. They were definitely this disjointed, siloed thing, right? I understand the patient better because I'm the one working with them. But it was interesting. My brother-in-law is going to medical school, and he said that their approach is a lot more collaborative. He said that they have the nurse, people going through the nurse program, they have the PAs, they have the physicians, all kind of together, sharing this collective vision. We're all doing the same thing. We're trying to treat patients. We're trying to make people's lives easier, right? We're trying to they're struggling with stuff. I think that's what we need to, that's what you need to do. That's the way to break it down, is to make people feel like they're part of the process, right? I'm playing a role in something larger here. We're trying to make that guest experience at the hotel better. So whether I work for the restaurant or I'm the cleaning crew or I work for the pool, we're all doing the same thing, right? I mean, you look at Disney, that's kind of their way of doing it. Everyone's a cast member, right? They're not an employee. They're all playing a role to make people happy, to deliver on that vision. So you're totally right, Rachel, that brand strategy is really important, but having stakeholders feel like, hey, we're all in this together. We're a part of the process. We're all working towards this. That's crucial to get people to start working in the same direction instead of having their own goals and things that just end up disjointed. And then you have a different brand message and things just start getting unwound crazy. So it's important to have that continuity and that camaraderie and that feeling and that passion that needs to be behind a brand, right?
yeah, and I think the hardest part, I think, can be getting buy-in, right? Because
Yeah.
the teams are so busy. A lot of times you're short-staffed. You're wearing so many different hats. So it's like, oh, okay, now marketing's trying to shove this down my throat too. Like, here we go. So I think, getting their buy-in, but exactly what you said, Derek, making them part of the process, making their voice heard. Like, we are all on the same team. So if we're going to suggest some crazy campaign that you don't even think you can execute, yeah, we're not going to do that. So what are things that we can do that are realistic, that we can execute to this high level and have it be successful versus just adding a whole nother layer of more work for you? So really trying to tie it into making sure that everyone has had their voice heard. And I remember having this kind of a blowout conversation with the pastry chef one time. We were trying to get a Christmas dessert menu finalized, and I was just hounding him, and he just got so frustrated. And I was like, listen, I am on your side. Like, I am trying to highlight your amazing dessert creations.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that I want to be hounding you for this? No. Like, I am trying to do this to help you so that it can highlight you and your skills and then further highlight the brand and what we're doing. And he was finally like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
And in my experience, that's almost always the best way to approach it. It's like, what's the common ground, right? Like, we're all trying to work towards a goal. I think people just lose track of that sometimes, right? I mean, to your point earlier, Rach, like, it's so busy in this industry. It's always on to the next campaign. It's always on to the next season. There's so much going on. It's so fast moving. It's easy to lose track of those things, but it's a great way to get people reminded, hey, we're on the same team. We're trying to accomplish the same thing here, right? It's a great reminder.
Yeah.
I'm trying to digest everything. I think you just solved the silos. It's like, Derek, to your point, start with the strategy and the vision. Start there, make sure you have it buy-in from there, but then take that into the strategy from a tactical perspective, mapped out at least a quarter, ideally 2 quarters beyond. And then translate that down into operationalize it with either a weekly or a bi-weekly, call it an alignment meeting.
Yeah.
I love that. I think the only thing I would add too is if you could have shared metrics, whether it's around ancillary revenue. Obviously, everyone's responsible for their own lanes, but if you have some kind of shared metrics as well with incentives tied around it, again, to incentivize, hey, does the golf course manager know how to promote the restaurant or whatever those are that we're trying to cross-sell between. I love having shared metrics just to get people all on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Well, and frankly,
that's a great point.
I think people get fired up when they see that. The golf course had a great quarter, right? And maybe the restaurant didn't. I would guarantee the restaurant's going to be stoked for the golf course and vice versa. Sharing the wins and this is what we did. There's learnings that other teams can adopt. So I think it's great. Trey's being transparent with things like that, both the hard things and the easy things, right? It's good to share the learnings and kind of move forward from those across different teams.
Yeah, no, Trey, you're so right though. The shared metrics and just getting people fired up. To have your hotel be designated a Forbes 5-star hotel. All the different departments have to have that same level. So it's a big deal when a hotel gets that recognition, and the excitement that the team feels, and just like, God, we did it. Like, this is so awesome. So yeah, if there was a way to incorporate some of those shared metrics across the board that you're looking at every, meeting or quarter, that would just be a huge motivator, I think. Yeah.
Love that.
All right. Well, to keep things fun, I thought we could do a little rapid fire would you rather. So just kind of chatting through some things that I think where businesses are commonly faced with in this industry. So I'm just going to share the topic, and then I would love to hear how you guys would approach that decision, or what decision you would take. So in this, ever-changing landscape with AI, would you rather implement AI to provide real-time personalized experiences to every guest, but risk feeling too automated and impersonal, or invest in a highly trained human staff that offers personalized experiences? So Trey, I'll let you kick this one off.
Okay. I definitely would go with the highly trained human staff that offers personalized experiences.
Yeah.
I think more often than not, you're better off doing the basics really well.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to the beginning, my answer at the beginning of this episode, but
yeah,
you're better off doing the basics extremely well than trying to add complexity to a system. There's an old saying, it's like simple scales, fancy fails. That's always resonated with me. So I think, and humans always going to be a very important aspect in travel and hospitality. So while I know AI is all the rage right now, and I do think there's a place for AI driven personalized experiences, I would definitely have to lean towards the human touch.
I'd agree with you, Trey. I mean, that's like your baseline. You have to be doing that, right? And the way I see it is like, if you're not doing that, like AI is not gonna do anything for you, right? Like, if you can't deliver that on the human level, the AI is not going to help you much.
Yeah.
It can give you some interesting insights. It can maybe suggest some things, but if your team and the people who are making, your brand, your company special, if they can't deliver on your promise and stuff, then AI is not going to be much help, frankly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's a time and a place for AI. And I think we, utilize those tools in some of our marketing efforts. But what, we are all aligned on is that human experience and human first, that is what is the most impactful. And those are the experiences that you remember long after you've checked out of wherever you're staying. And I think oftentimes they can be a big component of why you return, because of how you felt while you were there. Did you feel welcome? Did you feel valued? Did you feel like, wow, like I feel important. They remembered me from my last stay. That's so cool. I think we're all pretty aligned, human first.
I think another thing too on the AI is, I mean, they say we're like at the tip of the iceberg with AI, right? They say like we haven't even seen what's below the surface, what's to come. I mean, it really is going to be, it blows my mind when you see the ChatGPT updates, what it can do. Right? It's just, it's amazing. But I think we're moving further and further away from that human touch with a lot of things, right? You're no longer speaking to a customer representative when you try to call and book your room. It's an automated thing. It's all AI, right? So I think the brands and the hotels that are delivering on that and doing a really good job with that human first, customer experience are going to be the ones that survive, because long term anyone can implement AI, but to train your staff and have them highly understand your strategy and what it is that's special about your hotel, and that's where the real value is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you can replicate that.
No.
Yeah.
Until we have AI robots.
Yes, until then.
That's the hotel opens up, right?
Yeah.
Am I the only one that uses like please and thank you with ChatGPT, like just in case AI takes over and I can prove like I was kind to you, I was respectful when we worked together?
What's so funny is I just yesterday was talking to a client, and she was telling me how she uses ChatGPT, and she says, yeah, but I try not to like say thank you to it because it's just getting too weird. Like, it's not a person. Why am I saying thank you?
Right. You may be the the outlier there because I having just knowing it can give me information so quick. I'm so impatient with it. I always say I'm the first one it's going to kill when it becomes alive. It's going to just target me right away because I don't have the patience for it. I'm like, gosh, do you not understand what I'm asking you? Can you just give me that quicker? But
That
there's
is the
something
wrong
there.
answer.
It's the wrong answer. And I've actually heard a study where people, they prompt it with kindness and it actually gives you a more thorough response, which is
There you
actually,
go.
Oh my
so
God.
you
Kill
might
'em
be
with
onto something
kindness.
there.
Yeah. No, I try to hype it up. I'm like, we're such a good team together. Let's do this.
All
That's
right,
so
getting
good.
back to would you rather. So this is, I feel like, kind of a hot topic. I feel like key stakeholders are either all for influencer marketing or they are like, this is so bogus. Why? I don't understand. This doesn't even work. I think we're all in agreement that there is and can be a strategic way to utilize influencers. So would you rather partner with a few high profile influencers that are obviously going to have a bigger price associated, or work with a larger group of smaller or micro influencers? Derek, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, I've seen both takes on it. I've seen brands, I've worked with brands who have invested millions of dollars on one or two really high profile influencers. And I think it comes down to your goals. If you're trying to generate awareness, then you're struggling with something, then maybe it is a right call to do a big influencer. But I would say more often than not, your money's probably better spent going after these kind of micro influencers, right? They have a
Yeah.
I think data shows that micro influencers have a significantly more loyal audience than the larger ones do. So if you're looking for brand loyalty and you're
Yeah.
looking for people to, really move the needle for you, you're probably better off going with those micro influencers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think also looking at, okay, maybe we don't have this big budget for influencers, but let's just do a trade. So let's invite some of these more smaller scale micro influencers. We'll host their stay, we'll host some great experiences. So they're still getting this amazing experience and this really positive experience, but you're not out quite as much as you would be should you use this really high profile influencer that's going to require you to pay for travel and pay them on top of the hosted stay. So I think you get a little more bang for your buck and you often get a lot more content. If you're working with a smaller influencers, but a larger group of them, that's just that much more content that you can take and then strategically use throughout the year. So I'm with you.
I was going to go the other way just for the sake of disagreeing, but this one I do feel pretty passionately around. So I would also go micro. I think there's a couple of other advantages too. So one is you get to treat it as almost experiments in themselves. So you're not taking a huge bet on one massive influencer and putting all of your budget there.
Yeah.
If you're getting started with an influencer program, it's nice to be able to have 10, 20, 30, depending on the size and scale of your budget. Start with a wide array of influencers and actually test where are you seeing engagement? Are you actually being able to track conversions ideally back to that influencer, and then really double down on the ones that work and build relationships and invest in them over time. I would also add the micro influencer. I feel this way about influencers in general in the travel space, but really on the micro side might be the most underrated channel there is right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I will say the influencer space is crazy. It's really the wild, wild west. And obviously it's tough to make a blanket statement like that. But when you do it right, when you have highly influential, influencers with 100,000 followers, somewhere in that tier, they can make great content. They
Yeah.
have a loyal audience. I think that's where a lot of people sleep on is the content, like you said, Rachel, that you can get out of it. Because
Yeah.
so many travel brands struggle with like the day-to-day content creation to fill your social media feed. Like you
Yeah.
can do the big shoot quarterly or once a year, but the like day-to-day, month to month, how do you get that much nice quality content? Having an ongoing influencer program for that is huge. So I mean, you can do that just for the content itself, like
Right.
would pay for itself just from
Yeah.
there. But then you get the reach and the exposure. And then if you do it like we'd like to do from an SEO perspective, if they have a blog and now they're linking, now you're getting SEO equity out of that and possibly referral traffic from their blog. There's just so many benefits that I think it's going to continue to grow. But even with AI, as we start to see how things are changing in the search space, I think it's really going to explode. AI slash like digital PR, if you will, in the next couple of
Yeah.
years.
I have a
Yeah.
follow-up question
Well,
for you both on that.
oh, yeah.
On influencers, so some clients do have massive budgets, and I know some clients are very pro influencers, right? Like I think some
Yeah.
people, you're kind of on two groups. You either get it or you don't. Or you're fighting it, right?
Yeah.
What do you do in the case where a client says, "Hey, I want to go after the biggest and greatest," right? We've got budget for maybe one or two giant ones. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Is there value in that, or would you still kind of encourage the client to consider other options?
I think I would still encourage them to look at other options. Don't get me wrong, if you're going to get this, super big influencer to be posting their stay and their experiences and really highlighting you like that, that's great. That's amazing. But I think what you'll be getting will be so much of a smaller scale in comparison to what you could get. And if you're really looking at it as, it comes down to what your goal is. Are you trying to get content? Are you trying to, maybe you're testing some experiences and wanting to get them to film and shoot content around that experience because you're about to launch this big thing. If you have a really seasoned, highly influential, big time influencer that's a bigger cost, like that all needs to be dialed in before they come. And you're often dealing with just a lot more added costs aside from what you have to put up from the hotel. You're paying for all of these other things. A lot of times they'll have specific requirements for their stay, or I only fly this airline, or whatever. But I think that I would still always encourage to go a smaller scale personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that, unless it's The Rock, and that which is always go with The Rock. I think like there's going to be use cases if you're making a huge bet, like if you're doing a Super Bowl ad, then that makes sense. That's not really our audience. We're more in like the small to medium sized businesses. So I think for us, like from a truly performance standpoint, I would go with the larger volume of smaller influencers, and like I was saying, understand which ones perform well and which don't, and optimize it from there, just like you would an ad campaign. I will add, there's some cool tools. Spark Toro is a cool one. The founder, Rand Fishkin, he founded Moz, lets you analyze different audience segments and look at which influencer, like where influence really lives. And you could actually evaluate like macro influencers more effectively that way, as a little bit of research going into it to try to hedge your bets. But I think at the end of the day, if you're thinking from a performance standpoint, you're a small to medium sized business, I think micro influencers are the way to go. But Derek, what's your take? Where would you go with that one?
I agree. I think it's tricky. I almost see it like a bigger, larger influencer is almost like a big TV spot, right? I mean, you can do video, you can do a video ad, and you can push that out with media dollars and get national visibility, or you can do it more strategically, push it out online and really track, where things are coming from and how it's performing. It almost seems like it's become to that, right? Like, oh, we've got the money, we're just trying to push awareness. We're going to do a big, big influencer that everyone knows, or maybe the better option though is a smaller one. I think I would probably lean towards that, because it's, again, I'm looking at the data and seeing a more loyal audience with these micro influencers seems to make more sense. I think that would generally go back to what brands are trying to do, is to get people to book reservations. Everyone's trying to build loyalty. I think that's something every brand, regardless of your industry, is trying to do. And tapping into those smaller, more loyal audiences seems to make sense. But I'm not opposed to it. If a brand's got a big budget, they've got a really good, celebrity influencer type person who matches their personality, and if it makes sense, I think it makes sense, but at the end of the day, I think I generally agree with you, Rachel and Trey, that it's probably better to explore the micro ones, just because those audiences are so much more loyal. But
now that we've been talking, I'm going to change my answer just a tiny bit. So I do think where working with a bigger influencer makes a lot more sense is if you're doing some type of collab. So most of the time when you do these influencer stays, you're reposting their content and, highlighting, but you're really hoping that they will post on their feed because you want their audience to be seeing that and getting that engagement. But what can work really well is if you do more of a partnership. So it's like the influencer name and the brand's name. And maybe you're partnering with them because they're super well known, and you're creating like a package, a special package or an experience, or maybe they have maybe they design a product. And this is where you can even go into partnering with brands versus a big influencer. But so many of these influencers have their own brands now. So maybe they're creating a signature bag that now is in every single one of your guest rooms. And that's a really newsworthy and great storytelling moment to share. Hey, we've partnered with this amazing influencer because we're like-minded. She loves this or he loves this. And we've created this product that's only available for guests that stay. So it's just I think that's a good awareness tool to use big influencers as a partnership, because that's where maybe it doesn't make sense to do a more micro influencer because they're not going to be as I don't want to say globally, but nationally well known.
It's an interesting
you want them to have skin in the game. Like that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It seems like we're almost blurring the lines today on like what's a brand partnership and what's an influencer. Because to your point, Rach, like these influencers are full on brands, right? They've got a full team. You know, a lot of the time you're not even communicating with this person individually. You're talking to their team, getting stuff lined up. So it's, in some ways, it's almost a brand partnership on some level. You know, we're getting to that point where these influencers are on just a completely different level than they were 10 years ago.
No, I totally agree. And I think that we're going to continue to see that grow, where those bigger influencers, you're exactly right. We're not treating them as an influencer state. It is a brand partnership of like-minded brands. Yeah.
Sure.
I think you're right. All right. Our last would you rather. Would you rather invest in, and I'm just going to lead this off and let Trey lead this one. This seems more up his alley. Would you rather invest in digital marketing or traditional advertising?
Yeah, I'm super biased on this one. I've just spent my whole career on the digital side, but I have done some traditional, and I feel like every marketer, like in their heart, wants to do a big traditional campaign. Like I've done some billboard out of home stuff, and for some reason that's like just seems like the coolest. So I do enjoy doing traditional, but I mean, I'm going to have to go on the digital side. It is a little bit of a cop out because I'm assuming like OTT and streaming ads could be considered as digital marketing. That's all trackable. And so you could have the best of both worlds with the streaming advertising on that side, but then also be able to do everything, you know, on the search and paid social side. And so I'd have to go on the digital side myself.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there's something that everyone wants to see. Like, look, I'm in this magazine. This is my print ad. Like, this is so cool. Like, it's just, you know, it's really a tangible thing. And I also think this comes down to your market. You know, we have a couple local publications here that are like, people cannot wait to get their hands on them. And they like, it's a weekly thing. They always look at it. They always know what's going on. Like, oh, did you see that? And so I think for the outlets and things that can be really local driven, I think that's where traditional advertising works great. I think as far as guests and trying to get people from out of town or, you know, more destination marketing is going to be, I would agree with you. I think digital is the way to go, but I wouldn't discount traditional advertising altogether, especially for restaurants and spa and things that are open to the locals.
Yeah. I think it really depends too on the brand, right? Everyone's got different budgets and different priorities and stuff. I mean, to me, outdoor advertising and more traditional stuff, TV led spots and stuff, it's more kind of top funnel stuff. You're really trying to drive that awareness. And then, I mean, but where you're really going to win is investing in that lower funnel. So trying to convert people. And that's really where the digital advertising works really well for you. And to your point, Trey, it's evolving a lot. There's a lot of things now that fall under the digital marketing umbrella that, you know, are just new. Like, how do you capitalize on AI? How do you implement that on people's purchase decisions? Like that's where people are turning to for information. So I think that the digital sphere is going to continue to expand. And I think there's some kind of proven pillars of traditional advertising that might not necessarily go away, but definitely doesn't work as well as it used to. It's the evolving digital landscape is where it's at.
Yeah. Talk about the wild, wild west. I feel like that's exactly where we're at with digital advertising and digital marketing. It's kind of like, let's something works today, maybe it's not going to work later, and there's new stuff
Right.
coming up all the time.
Absolutely.
All right, that was fun. So we want to always close with just talking about someone or a hotel or a brand or an initiative that we've seen that we feel like is just working really, really well, or something that has really stood out to us. So I will go first, but I have been a big fan of the Nimmo Bay Resort and what they are doing. And I think if you take a look at their site, it's just really well done. They showcase the experience that you can have really well. Like it really evokes this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I really want to be there. That looks so cool. I can see myself there. I think it's definitely a more unique experience, really tailored to outdoor adventure and excursions, which I think sometimes can have an opposite feeling of like luxury retreat relaxation. But they've done an amazing job at weaving some of those options in to make it feel very well rounded. So you can go have this amazing helicopter ride and go see bears and kayak and canoe with orcas and all this crazy stuff. But then you can also go have a world-class spa treatment. So I think what they've done is great. And you just can feel this sense of longing to go there and experience it. So I've been really impressed with everything they've been doing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do our next offsite there.
Seriously.
We're an offsite when we're all remote. It's like actually an on-site, I guess.
That's right.
How does that work?
Yeah, for me, I'd have to say the Four Seasons just always stands out to me as just a brand who's just killing it. They just do, their customer service is just unparalleled. You just can't beat it. I mean, the way they collect data and just constantly try to make that guest experience better. It's at the center of their strategy, right? That it's just everything they do revolves around making that experience better. If I have a stay and I say, hey, I like 3 pillows, I know the next time I'm going to go there, I'm going to get 3 pillows on my bed. I just love that attention to detail they have. Calling you by name when you show up is just, it's the most amazing thing ever. I mean, you're out spending lots of money, but for them to just deliver on this experience and like those little details we talked about earlier, they just deliver on that constantly. And it's through collecting data and just obsessing over the customer journey and how can we make every touch point really meaningful. To me, they just constantly stand out as a brand that's just doing really well.
Yeah, it's almost like, how'd you do that?
I know it is. There's almost this bit of like mystery to it, right? Like they're so good and seamless at collecting and delivering on these things. It's just incredible. They're operating on a different level.
Yeah. And then to take the risk of the partnership with White Lotus, like that's been a home run. But I was talking with a colleague the other day. If you looked at that script just on paper, like that's a risky show to associate yourself with. And I love that they took that approach. I think it's a strategy to start trying to connect more with millennial and older Gen Z audiences.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, it's really paying off, but you got to love taking the risk. Like for a brand like that, that's a bold move.
It is a bold move, especially because the audience, the guest in the show is so unhinged and so unpredictable.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that I think would play it safe and pass on that one.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Trey?
So mine is the RH Guest House. I picked this one because they have a really unique positioning, which I think is super challenging in the travel space. Like, how many different ways can you say you're a hotel and really be different? And they've come up with a really unique way. So actually, I wanted to read this because it's going to do it more justice than me trying to explain it. But if you go to their website on the homepage, they have, "This is not a hotel. This is our house and you are our guest. Everything is designed for your privacy and comfort. We have 6 rooms, 3 suites, and a residence, which is sometimes available for booking. We don't have a lobby, meetings, events, or distractions. We do have a private rooftop garden, pool, and dining terrace for you to unwind, enjoy a morning coffee, late lunch, or candlelit dinner, a beautiful dining room, some may call it a restaurant, where there will always be a table waiting for you, a luminous champagne and caviar bar, perfect for intimate evenings and light luxurious bites. We don't have a full bathroom. We have 2 in every room. We don't have mattresses. We have fresh beds for a deep restorative sleep. We don't have mini bars. We have freshly stocked gourmet pantries. We don't have an exercise room, but do have a gym in every room. In case you forgot anything, we have tried to anticipate everything. It's not for everyone. No children or pets. Maximum of 2 guests per room. no fold out bids, no thumping music, no loud or grumpy guests. To honor your privacy, we ask that guests refrain from taking photographs or posting the property on social media. Lastly, we don't have silly rules like breakfast ends at 11. Welcome home. Like, how
So
amazing
good.
and unique is that? They don't even
Yeah.
want UGC. Like, they're asking guests
Yeah.
to take pictures.
They're
I
like,
just
please
love
don't
it.
tag us.
Yeah, and if you go to their website, there's not even imagery. There's like an exterior shot, but then after that, it's like hand-drawn sketches. So it's like you almost don't get to see the real thing until you're there. So hats off to them. I love just creative ways of standing out, and just like reading that gets me fired up. So
Love
I
it.
thought that was
Well, and
amazing.
talk
Like,
about risk taking, like not even to even show pictures. I mean, that's a huge risk, but
I was
that's
going to
like
say, Rachel, you probably know there's almost like a formula you follow for hotel marketing, right? They've
totally.
just like thrown the rule book out the window and said, no, we're going to do it our way. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. But like how, like what a win, you know, they did
Yeah.
something so untraditional, and I'm sure their phones have been ringing off the hook because people are like, wait, I want to get in here. This sounds like a dream. Sign me up.
Yeah.
And I love how
Yeah.
they speak to who their audience is not. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is it no fold out bids, no no pets,
Yeah.
no kids? Like,
Yeah.
but if you're not a part of that audience, like, it speaks to you that much more. Like, it's always tempting to try to be everything to everyone, but when you really narrow in on your niche, it's that much more compelling. So yeah, I just love that example.
I
That's
feel
a
like
great.
we've just come for full circle for you, Trey, talking about you can't do it all. So pick the things that you're good at and do it well. And I think they've obviously really capitalized on knowing their audience. But I think that's such a good lesson for any property or any hotel, any resort. Do you want to do it all, kind of like 80% for everyone, or do you want to really knock it out of the park for your true audience? So great. Well, this is such a fun chat, you guys, and we're so excited to get this podcast rolling. And we would love to actually put a challenge out to you. So take a look at your brand's recent marketing efforts and really look, does it align with your authentic brand story, or do you think that there's things that could be improved upon? And if you do need help doing that, that's exactly what we're here for. So follow Foundry Talks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review if you've enjoyed this chat today. Thanks so much, everybody.